вони готові були закінчити війну, якщо ми візьмемо, як Фінляндія колись там, нейтралітет і дамо зобов'язання, що ми не будемо вступати до НАТО. Коли ми повернулися з Стамбулу, приїхав Борис Джонсон до Києва і сказав, що ми взагалі не будемо з ними нічого підписувати і давайте будемо просто воювати. От як тільки ми закличемо їх сісти, наступного дня вони складуть делегацію і будуть вже сидіти, чекати.
This is my video update from Athens, Greece on this Saturday afternoon, November the 25th. Let's talk about some news and let's start things off with the interview for the Ukrainian TV channel 1+1 with Mr. David Arachamia, and he is the leader of Zelensky's Servants for the People Party, or Servants of the People Party. And he was also the chief negotiator with for Ukraine with Russia in late March, early April. He was the guy that was negotiating the peace deal in Istanbul, which came very close to an effective ceasefire. And so this guy goes on this Ukrainian TV channel, and boy, does he spill the beans. Boy, does he spill the beans about the entire negotiations process. But even more interesting than that, he reveals why Ukraine will continue to fight this conflict until there is no more Ukraine. And so everyone is talking about what he said with regards to the negotiations with Russia for a ceasefire, end of March, first couple of days of April, and in Istanbul. And Mr. Arachamia, he said that basically all that the Russians wanted was for Ukraine to remain neutral, to not be a part of NATO, to not continue its path towards NATO. That was essentially the core of Russia's demands. That was what Russia was putting on the table. And this guy said that Ukraine was in agreement with that, but there were two issues that he brought up as he was giving this interview. He said that the first issue was that Ukraine did not trust Russia. Okay, Ukraine didn't trust Russia when they were going to make a deal, and he said that what Ukraine needed were security guarantees. Now, I believe that Russia would have been okay with those security guarantees. So I believe that this is negotiable. This was a concern of Ukraine's, and I believe that this is something that with time, it would have been negotiated with Russia. Actually, Putin, a couple of weeks ago, I think he even said that Russia would have been okay with security guarantees given that the guarantor countries, one of those countries was Russia, and that there would be no foreign military presence in Ukraine unless it had the approval of all the guarantor nations. So that would effectively mean that if the United States wanted to put boots on the ground, let's say in Ukraine, or have military training exercises in Ukraine, it would need the approval of all the guarantor states, including Russia, and vice versa. If Russia wanted to conduct military exercises in Ukraine, it would need the approval of let's say, the United States and all the other guarantor states. So even Putin said that the whole issue of having guarantors would have been negotiated. So that was the first concern that Mr. Arachamia put out there during this 1+1 interview. And then he said that the second issue wasn't so much a concern, but this was a big issue that eventually led to the breakdown of the peace agreement. And we did have, effectively, we had the frameworks for a ceasefire signed by all parties. The problem that he said was that Boris Johnson came to town and he told the Ukrainians to tear up the agreement and keep on fighting. Now, this should be no surprise to all of us that have been following the events in Ukraine over the past year and a half. The fact that Boris Johnson flew into Kiev and he told the Zelensky regime, take that agreement, tear it up, and keep on fighting. It shouldn't surprise anybody. But here is the chief negotiator and the leader of Zelensky's political party on Ukraine TV. I guess 1+1 is a big TV channel. I'm not sure, but here he is giving this interview, telling everybody, most importantly, the people of Ukraine, this is what happened, which is really David Arachamia telling the people of Ukraine that we had peace within the first month, and the collective West, Boris Johnson, came and ruined that peace. He promised us that he would help, that the collective West would help, and so we were to fight on, to keep on fighting. And it's also an admission, to be quite honest, this is an admission that the entire siege of Kiev, Russia wanted to capture Kiev in 3 days, is also nonsense, because Arachamia says that what the Russians were going for, this is what he told the interviewer, he said what the Russians were pushing for in the first month of the special military operation is they were trying to force Ukraine into neutrality. I even think that he says what the Russians wanted was a Ukraine much like the status of Finland before Finland. Sanna Marin went cuckoo crazy and decided to put Finland into NATO before the Dancing Queen decided to move Finland into NATO and then get her sweet job at the Tony Blair Institute. Anyway, he said that Russia was looking for a status for Ukraine very much like Finland. Let me read you actually what he said. Let me get some quotes here. This is from the chief negotiator of the talks in Turkey and the leader of Zelensky's servants for the people, of the people, by the people, servants of the people party, or whatever that television show was called, and whatever Zelensky's party, Kolomoisky Zelensky's party, was branded. Anyway, this is what he said. Russia's goal was to put pressure on us so that we would take neutrality. This was the main thing for them. They were ready to end the war if we accepted neutrality, like Finland once did. And we would make a commitment that we will not join NATO. This was the main thing. So Finland went back on their word. They went back on their word, their neutrality promise, and now they're a part of NATO. And this is what Russia wanted for Ukraine. I mean, he says it. He says it. They were ready to end the war. Russia was ready to end the war if we accepted neutrality. Incredible stuff, man. Why is he saying this? Why is he being allowed to say this to all of Ukraine and to the world? I think we know why he has been given the green light to say this. The puppet masters are telling him to say this. They're the ones that put this interview together. They're telling him to say this. I imagine that he's saying all of this either to throw Zelensky under the bus or to push public opinion towards a Zelensky negotiation. I imagine that's why he's coming out and saying all of this. The story that I did yesterday from Bild was that the Biden White House and Olaf Scholz, they're trying to get Zelensky to open up negotiations with Russia. The German-American plan for Ukraine. That's what Bild was saying. So there's a faction of the Biden White House, Richard Haas and these guys say at Foreign Affairs or Foreign Policy or the Foreign Council, whatever think tank these neocons are a part of. There's a group of people in D.C., in the United States, that realize that this war is lost and they want to find some sort of, I don't want to say an end to the war. They want to find a freeze or some sort of ceasefire which will give them time regroup and rearm, and in the next 5 or 10 years take Europe into a war with Russia. That's what I believe they want. These neocons, they're the other neocons, the harder core neocons who are like just keep on fighting until the last Ukrainian, right? Keep on fighting until the last person. There are those neocons as well. Keep in mind that the U.S. has an election, so for Biden, it would be beneficial for the Biden White House to put on its campaign platform to go out and speak. Well, Biden, not go out and speak, to sit in your basement and speak and to the American people and tell them that I brokered a peace in Ukraine. For Biden, they're probably thinking that would help him in 2024. But anyway, that's why I think he's being allowed. He's been greenlit to say this. But the interviewer, they asked him, when millions of Ukrainians are now asking themselves the question, why are people dying? Why is Ukraine waging this senseless war? Why couldn't it live in peace with its neighbors? This is what this guy answered. Firstly, in order to agree to the single point of Russia's demands about non-entry into NATO, it was necessary to change the constitution. Our path to NATO is enshrined in the constitution. Secondly, when we returned from Istanbul, Boris Johnson came to Kiev and said that we would not sign anything with them at all. And, quote, let's just fight, end quote. That's what he says Boris Johnson told the Zelensky administration. Let's just fight. The whole NATO is enshrined in our constitution. That's BS. That's BS. If they wanted to, they could. They could remove that clause in the Constitution and put a new clause in the Constitution saying that Ukraine were going to remain neutral and these 5 countries were going to be the guarantor countries of Ukraine's security. That's simple. So he also said, David Arahamia, he said, I think, now this is the interesting part of the interview. I think this is the interesting part. This stuff that I was just talking about, we all knew. We all knew this. Here's the interesting parts. But what I like about his statement about Russia was pushing us. Their goal in the first month was to push us to neutrality. What I like about that is, once again, it exposes the fiction of the siege of Kiev. It exposes the fact. It says the truth of Russia's initial intentions for the first month of the special military operation, which was to get Ukraine to the negotiating table. That's what Russia wanted to do when they moved 40,000 troops in and around Kiev. They wanted to force Zelensky's hand to the negotiating table and to agree to neutrality. Anyway, I thought this was the interesting part of this guy's interview and what he said. I think that the entire leadership of Ukraine, both military and political, is in favor of fighting. Why? Because we cannot sit down at the negotiating table now. Our negotiating position is very bad. What are we going to sit down for now? Where we stay? Let's just call it a day. Do you think that Ukrainian society will accept this? Any agreement short of a complete victory must go through a referendum. If someone signs something and it needs to be ratified in Parliament, then in Parliament they will simply kill each other. There will be very polar views, and such things, I believe, should only be done through a referendum. And he goes on in this statement, but effectively he is saying sunk cost fallacy. That's what he is saying. He said we've lost too much now to turn back. Classic sunk cost fallacy. They could have ended this in the first month of March. In 1 month, this could have been over. It would have saved 500,000, 1 million lives. It would have preserved Ukraine, and Ukraine would have lost a little. They would have lost a little. And keep in mind, Putin, from what I understand, Russia wasn't even against Ukraine's path towards the European Union at that time. Just NATO. Finland's in the European Union, And it wasn't in NATO back then. At that time, now it's in both. But that was the model. That was the model that Russia wanted. And so within the first month, the damage would have been minimal for Ukraine, for everybody, for Russia as well, for the world, for Europe, for the Biden White House, for the United States. But nope. Boris flew into town and he told the Zelensky regime that they're going to win this thing. The collective West is going to give Zelensky all the money he wants, all the weapons he wants, 15 million sanctions on Russia, government collapse, and they're going to come out with everything. Yeah, you lost a little now. You lost a little now, Zelensky, but when we're done with Russia, this is what I imagine Boris telling Zelensky. When we're done with Russia, you're going to have everything. Donbass, Crimea. If you even want parts of Rostov and any other parts, Krasnodar, Sochi, we'll give you that as well when we balkanize Russia. That is exactly, in my opinion, that is exactly what Boris Johnson told Zelensky. And Zelensky, being a very dumb clown puppet actor, he's a dumb actor, let's face it, he's dumb, he's a dumb actor. He's sitting there going, yeah, I'll be the greatest ruler that all of the Ruski Mir has ever known, right? That's what Zelensky thought. And all the money, unlimited money, Boris probably told Zelensky and all of his crew, unlimited money. 50 billion, 100 billion, 200 billion, 500 billion, whatever you guys need, we'll give it to you. And they all bought it. That is the interesting part about this guy's statement, I thought, was his admission that Ukraine is now trapped in a sunk cost fallacy. Now they've lost too much to turn back. Now the sunk cost fallacy dictates that you lose it all. You might as well keep on going, keep on investing in this failing business because you've lost so much money that you might as well put whatever you have into it because you've lost so much. Maybe that 1 or 2% chance that you'll be able to recoup your investment, but 98% chance that you've lost everything, but you might as well throw whatever funds you have left into this dying business because you've already lost so much. On the hopes, the 1% chance that you'll be able to gain it all back. And things are going bad for Ukraine. Things are going very, very bad for Ukraine. And this guy admits it in the interview. He was telling the 1+1 journalist that things are just getting harder. We're going to continue to fight, but things are getting harder. Basically, he's saying we're going to fight till there's no more Ukraine because there's no way for us to turn back. But things are going bad, very, very bad. Zelensky, yesterday, he announced that there is going to be next week an announcement about a military conscription, a mobilization, what we've been talking about over the past couple of days on this channel, on Alexander's channel, on the Duran. There is going to be some type of mobilization, according to Zelensky, and it's going to be, I think Zelensky used the words complex, but they're going to try to not make it complex, but it's going to be complex. The situation in Avdiivka is getting very bad. The Russian military, they are moving ever closer to capturing the coke plants, and they're moving closer to creating a cauldron, to closing that circle, if they want to close that circle. I don't know if they want to close that circle. I'm thinking they may want to keep that circle open, keep at least one road moving into Avdiivka so that they can continue to annihilate the Ukraine military. But the word is that the Russian military is getting very close to capturing the coke plants. From Slavyangrad, Avdiivka direction, northern flank, there's a glimmer of positivity as our army reportedly secured a foothold in the northeast part of the Avdiivka coke plant. The extent of our advancement is not yet clear. but the enemy is in retreat. So this is a post from the Telegram channel Slaviangrad from the Russian perspective, but Slaviangrad is a Russian perspective, but they report the news in a very fair and objective manner. So this is what they're reporting. Maybe it'll take a week to get the coke plants, maybe in a month, I don't know. But this has got to be freaking out the Zelensky regime. It's got to be freaking out Zelensky, not the coke plant. Podolyak, they can't take the coke plant. What are we going to do if they take the coke plant? Mr. President, I told you a million times, it's not that kind of coke. It's fuel from coal. It's not that kind of coke. You know Zelensky's freaking out. Not the coke plant. Oh boy, things are very bad for Ukraine. Very, very bad. But they can't stop. They're compelled to fight till the end. Unless, of course, the people of Ukraine listen to that interview and do something. That's what I think the purpose of that interview was, but I could be wrong. Maybe it was the reverse. Maybe the purpose of this interview, maybe this guy was allowed to say this on Ukraine TV so that he can make the case for fighting on till the very end. I don't know. Brian Berletic, he highlighted an Economist article with the title, Russia is starting to make its superiority in electronic warfare count. There may not be much the West either can or will do to help Ukraine. So in this article from The Economist, the neocon economists, the super uber neocon economists, they basically say that Russia has superiority not only in drones, weapon productions, across the board. Russia has superiority over the NATO proxy, but also in electronic warfare. Russia has a huge advantage in electronic warfare, even as Ukraine talks about producing thousands of drones. The Russians, they have no problem dealing with these drones now because of their superior electronic warfare. Brian tweeted, Economist admits Russia has electronic warfare systems far better than anything available to Ukraine and is disrupting Ukrainian drone operations. It also admits Russia is building more drones than Ukraine with an advantage at least 2-1. So that is what The Economist is saying. And in the article, The Economist even says that Ukraine, they send drones, hundreds of drones, thousands of drones towards Russia. Very, very inexpensive, easy to make drones. And the Russian electronic warfare, they just hit the drones. They jam the drones, and the drones just kind of just crumble to the ground. They just kind of just go to the ground. That's what The Economist actually says in this article. And the friendship with Poland not going too well for Ukraine. That BFF friendship has collapsed. Remember when Duda was hugging Zelensky, like just swallowing up Zelensky? Duda was like, and Zelensky's like, why does everybody hug me? It must be my cologne. Yeah, that whole Duda-Zelensky bromance is over. I don't even think Tusk will be able to get that bromance back to where it was in the first year of the conflict. Because I think the people of Poland, this is just my opinion, anybody that's watching this from Poland, let me know. I just think the people of Poland are tired with this. I think they're tired of the conflict. Even if they support Ukraine, I think they're tired of the conflict. I think they don't want to see war. They just want this to end. That's my take on this. They want peace. That's my sense of the feeling in Poland. And you have this border crossing dispute where Polish truckers and farmers now they've blocked the border with Ukraine, and they're not allowing goods to pass through. They're not allowing Ukraine to move towards Poland, and they're not allowing NATO to deliver weapons, from what I understand, weapons, even though Ukraine says humanitarian aid. I think they're talking about weapons. But they're not allowing stuff from NATO and from the collective West via the Polish border to get across. And basically the truckers are pissed off because, in my opinion, the Polish truckers are 100% right. They're pissed off because the Ukraine products that are coming into Poland, they're being dumped in Poland and in Europe cheap, because I think the EU, um, they don't require Ukraine to have permits or something like that, and so the Ukraine products are able to enter, say, the Polish market at a huge price advantage. And the truckers and the farmers and all these people are like, well, that's not fair. And keep in mind, they're not even part of the European Union. So, why I can imagine the Polish truckers like, why are you guys doing this to us? EU. I imagine they're talking to the EU. Come on, or to their government. Why are you allowing these guys to dump their products cheaply in Poland, and it's hurting our business? So, they're taking a stand and they're saying enough. And so you have this issue at the border, and it's not calming down. It's actually getting more tense, and Ukrainians are pissed off at the Poles, and Poles are telling Ukrainians tough luck, and the bromance is over. The bromance is over. And so what does the collective West do? How do they get things back on track? Well, it's very simple, actually. If you're the collective West and you need a dream team, you need a fixer, you need someone to fix the situation, who you gonna call? Trudeau. Who you gonna call? Ursula. Yep, that's who you call to get things back on track. So there was this conference the other day, the Canada EU Friend Conference or something like that. It's called something Canada EU Friendship Conference or Friend Summit, whatever, whatever name they put to this. And so, they sat together, Trudeau and Ursula, and they basically said, here's the deal with Ukraine. The problem with Ukraine are all those MAGA people. Not joking. I'm not joking. When in doubt, blame Trump, Putin, or MAGA, or the far right. That's it. That's all you need to know. If you're a globalist, if you're a neolib, that's the lesson. That's what they tell you when you go to neolib globalist camp. They tell you, here's what you do if you're in a bind or if you mess up or if you make a bad decision. Blame it on Trump. Blame it on Putin, blame it on MAGA, blame it on the far right. Yes, but teacher, I'm Canadian, so what does MAGA have to do with me? Isn't that Make America Great Again? Doesn't matter. Just blame it on MAGA. And so that's what Trudeau said at a press conference, standing next to Ursula, meeting with the EU kleptocrats. This is coming from Politico. Trudeau blames MAGA influence for stirring debate on Ukraine. In a surprise move this week, Canada's Conservatives voted against a new trade deal with the war-torn country. And so they were going to have this free trade deal with Ukraine, and the Conservatives, who support Zelensky, by the way, the Conservatives are no good guys in all of this. They wanna arm Ukraine to the teeth as well, and they would like to see Russia collapse. Believe me, but they didn't want to go along with this trade deal because of some clause in the deal related to carbon pricing. To be honest, I don't even know what that means, but there was some green carbon pricing clause in this free trade deal, and the Conservatives were like, we can't approve this carbon pricing thing because it goes against our platform and our policy, and so they voted down this free trade deal. The Conservatives said that they'll approve this free trade deal once they get into power, and they can remove this carbon pricing clause in this free trade deal. But Trudeau was upset. And he blamed it on MAGA. He said that the MAGA America influence was the reason for the Conservatives to shoot down this free trade deal with Ukraine, and then standing next to the European Union, if they don't have this free trade deal, then Zelensky is not going to get everything that he needs. And the song and dance routine after that. Zelensky's not going to get this, he's not going to get that. Blame it on MAGA. If Ukraine loses, it's all MAGA's fault. That means it's all Trump's fault, and that means it's all Putin's fault, right? So that's how it goes. But yeah, so yeah, that was the summit, the friendship summit between Trudeau and the EU kleptocrats. Trudeau did decide to give Ukraine 11,000. What did he give them? 11,000 rifles. He's donating 11,000 rifles and machine guns, as well as 9 million rounds of ammunition to Ukraine, sourced from a manufacturer in Ontario. I'm not quite sure what that means. 9 million rounds of ammunition sourced from a manufacturer in Ontario. Trudeau didn't get into the details of it, but they also said, the European Union and Trudeau, they said that they will work to support Ukraine for as long as it takes. Von der Leyen noted that the European Union had partially opened their market for Ukrainian goods and said it made it possible to have a more seamless cross-border exchange of goods on each side, while at the same time generating income for Ukraine. The joint statement from the Canada European Union summit reads that both parties will stand with Ukraine for as long as it takes and work to address Ukraine's immediately military and defense needs. Well, you know, Van der Leyen says that the EU, they opened up the market for Ukrainian goods and things are working. Well, tell that to the truckers, the Polish truckers on the border. Ursula van der Crazy. They don't seem too happy with the seamless cross-border exchange of goods. That's a direct quote from Ursula. So let's now, I feel like I forgot to say something. I feel like I forgot to say something about Trudeau and this friendship meeting. My mind is drawing a blank all of a sudden. All of a sudden, it is drawing a blank. Yeah, he blamed it on MAGA. He blamed the breakdown. I know what I wanted to say. He blamed the breakdown of this free trade deal on MAGA. What I wanted to just say is, anytime I hear a deal being put together for money, weapons, and green stuff, then you know it's a grift. You know this is a big grift when you have the trifecta of cons put together in one trade deal. Military, financial aid, and green. Oh boy. Oh boy, there is going to be a lot of washing machine action taking place there. Anyway, that's what I wanted to say. Now let's move on to a Financial Times article which claims that Israeli intelligence was warned about the Hamas attack. This is what the Financial Times is reporting. It says that a detailed report about a possible imminent attack ended up being dismissed as an imaginary scenario, according to the Financial Times. The warning, compiled by border sentries, many of them female soldiers, the Financial Times was told, arrived through secure communication lines to the highest ranking intelligence officer in the Southern Command a few weeks before the attack, sources said, without identifying the senior security official. The report contained specific warnings on the looming assault, namely Hamas plans to breach the border at multiple points, enter Israeli territory, and seize local settlements. A person with direct knowledge of its contents told the FT. The assessment was based on intelligence that included videos of Hamas militants in training. The high-ranking intelligence officer who received the report, however, dismissed the assessment as an, and I quote, imaginary scenario, and no action was taken. So according to the Financial Times, there was a warning that Hamas was up to something very big many, many days before October 7th. They knew what was going on. The warning made its way up the ranks, and it was just brushed off as an imaginary scenario, and no action was taken. So why is the Financial Times reporting this? Well, the Financial Times is very close to the Biden White House, and my guess would be that the Financial Times is reporting this because this weakens Netanyahu. It weakens Netanyahu, it weakens Netanyahu's position, and it makes Netanyahu look incompetent. To just put it plainly, it makes Netanyahu look like he was very much asleep at the wheel, and his incompetence, his administration's incompetence, allowed the October 7th attack to happen. That's why this article, in my opinion, is being reported on by the Financial Times. And now let's see how we're doing on time. We're doing okay. Let's do a couple of more stories, and we will wrap this video up. And yesterday I talked about the horrific stabbing tragedy that happened in Ireland with 5 people stabbed, including 3 children, and one of the children is in critical condition. And then riots broke out afterwards, and the mainstream media was hyper-focused not on the stabbing, they were hyper-focused on the riots that took place, and they branded the riots far-right. MAGA, Trump, Putin are far-right, so they said the rioters and the riots were far-right ideology. And we now have the Prime Minister of Ireland, Mr. Leo Varadkar. Leo Varadkar. The Prime Minister, he is, you would think that after a horrific stabbing of children, you would think that as the leader of Ireland, you would be horrified and effing shocked, upset about this stabbing of children, and you would do everything humanly possible in your power, in your capacity as Prime Minister to deal with this stabbing, what happened, and to make sure that something like this would never, ever, ever happen again. You would think that as Prime Minister, that's what would happen. If I was Prime Minister of Ireland, if I was in Varadkar's place, that would be my number one goal right there. That would be my big concern. That would be what I would tell the Irish people. This incident, we're going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to find out what happened. We're going to just make sure we understand everything that happened, and we're never, ever, ever going to let this ever, ever, ever happen again. Ever. That's what you want to say if you're Prime Minister, right? That's not what he said. His concern is to put more surveillance in place. That's his concern. To put more surveillance and stricter hate crime speech laws in place. From Al Jazeera, Ireland to tighten hate laws amid far-right Dublin riot shame. Unrest started after a knife attack on a woman and 3 children that seriously wounded a 5-year-old girl. Labeling the violence a shame on Ireland, Leo Varadkar said on Friday that his government would use the full resources of the law to punish the perpetrators and tighten hate and incitement legislation. Police have blamed the trouble on a lunatic faction driven by far-right ideology, end quotes. Never let a crisis go to waste. That's the globalist mantra. Never let a horrific incident like this go to waste. And so what are they going to do? They're going to not, let's not focus on the stabbing, let's focus on the riots, on the protests, and let's implement even stricter surveillance and hate speech, hate crime laws. And from what I understand, Ireland already has some of the most strict hate crime laws already in place. Can't make this stuff up. You really can't make this stuff up. So I guess that's the lead into my next story, which is about a different leader, a different president, a capable, competent leader, and that is one Vladimir Putin. And this is going to be a lead into my clown world, actually, this next story. So Putin was speaking at an AI conference, and he talked about the power of artificial intelligence and some of the good that it could bring to Russian society. He said that there was a growing trust among people for the revolutionary technology, Thank God our citizens understand that AI makes everyday processes simpler, more convenient, improves the quality of management and mechanisms for providing public services, Putin said. He went on to note that the rapid development of generative AI capable of creating images and text, calling the advent of such technology an outstanding achievement of the human mind. So why do I bring up this story? I bring up this story about AI. One, because it shows that Putin is in touch with big technology breakthroughs, or at least he's getting briefed properly on technology breakthroughs. He's basically saying that he trusts the Russian people, and he trusts that that AI is going to be used for the most part for the greater good of Russia. But more importantly, this story leads to my clown world, and it's a tweet from Jay in Kiev, who says, in 2 months' time, Putin's disinfo machine has frozen U.S. Congress, stopping U.S. aid to Ukraine, elected a pro-Putin Slovakian government, and now elected a pro-Russian Dutch government. It's all just getting started. So my thinking on this is that, being that Putin is all-powerful, maybe Putin is the AI. Did you guys ever think of that? Maybe Putin is the artificial intelligence. Oh man, it's all Putin's fault. Remember, it's far right, MAGA, Trump, Putin. Maybe it's even in that order: far right, MAGA, Trump, Putin. But that's the order. So yeah, pro-Russian leader in Slovakia, in the Netherlands, Congress, influencing Congress, scuttling a free trade deal in Canada. It's just all roads lead back to Putin. MAGA, Trump, far right, Putin. Far right, MAGA, Trump, Putin. I think Putin is the AI. Anyway, that's the video, everybody. TheDuran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and Twitter X. And go to the Duran shop, 20% off. Speaking of Slovakia, I'm wearing my Slovakia sweatshirt on a very windy day here in Athens. 20% off. Use the code TheDuran20. Take care.